Hello, and welcome to Val, Voices of Wisdom, the show that might not be for everybody, but everybody needs to watch this show. If you are tuned in today, you are in set for a great, extraordinary experience. I have today, my guest today has had an intimate dinner with Betty Davis, and also he has spent time and had lunch and dinner with Dr. Martin Luther King back in December of 1965. I want you to welcome today my guest and filmmaker, George Silano. Hi, George.
Well, how nice to be here.
I'm just excited for you to be here. What we're going to do is I want you to start telling us, first of all, where were you born at? Where were you born and raised?
Yes, I was born in Queens, in Flushing, and that's where I grew up, and eventually moved into Manhattan. Mm-hmm. And then at some point I came out to the Hamptons and found this lovely spot.
Oh, you found us?
And became a weekender.
Oh, you were one of those.
One of those weekenders.
So what we're going to do, we're going to journey through photographs of a little bit of your background and history of your journey throughout this whole world. And so what I would like you to do is start with that first photo, and I believe the first photo has to do with you, just your first training.
Right. Well, actually, I was drafted in the Army during the Korean War, and they were going to put me into still photography school. And when I got there, they had no openings, but they had an opening in the motion picture school. So I said, well, I'll take that. And I knew nothing about motion pictures. This was an amazing transformation. But in the first few weeks of the course, I knew a lot about the technical aspects of, imagery and film. So they asked me to stay as an instructor. So this picture shows me as an instructor.
And what year was that about?
1951 to 53.
Awesome.
So this is the best time of my life was teaching motion picture photography in the Army.
Wow.
For my whole Army experience.
Awesome.
And I was at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, and I was home every weekend.
Oh, great. That's great. That's great.
It was the best time of my life.
And our next picture?
Now, this picture is on the set with Monty Woolley, a famous Hollywood actor, and we were doing a whole series with him called On Stage with Monty Woolley. And it was a lot of fun because it was production, and we condensed classic stories, we condensed them to under a half hour, which was quite a feat.
Really?
And it was a good experience for me because I was just starting.
Right. And next we have...
And during that experience working for that small studio, we do various, people would come in and we do commercials, or this was Dale Evans, Roy Rogers' wife.
Wow.
And this was fun. This is a picture of Governor Averell Harriman, who was also our ambassador to Moscow during World War II.
Wow.
And here he's doing his campaign for a governorship of New York.
And so you're standing there behind him, and what was it like being in that room with him?
Well, it's always great. What always impressed me was their ability to do a piece within a certain time. Like they would say, what do you want me to do? 60 seconds? Okay, ready, I'm ready, right?
Okay.
And we shoot, and they'd come in right on time. We did FDR Jr. that way. He was amazing.
Really?
Okay, now this is a picture of Adlai Stevenson, who was running for president at this time against Dwight Eisenhower.
Wow.
1956.
1956.
So these people were coming through this small studio where I worked, and I was able to meet them and.
So they were already set up to come in.
Yeah.
To do like a news clip or whatever.
Well, we were doing their commercials.
Oh, the commercials. Oh, okay.
For their campaign.
Okay, got you.
Yeah. Now this is a picture of me in Moscow in 1962, at the height of the Cuban Missile Crisis. I was doing a picture called "The Soviet Woman: What Is It Like to Be a Woman in Russia?"
Wow.
So it was a very scary time, because the day before we left, the headlines in the New York papers were, "Newsman arrested in Moscow." And I was so scared,
wow.
I had to get on the plane next day to go to Moscow.
Did you have any protection at all?
No, there wasn't any need for that, really.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is a similar shot of shooting this. It was
a dapper young man, huh?
It was a 1 hour black and white documentary.
Okay.
Now this is another picture. The next year in '63, I was going around the world to do a picture about what is it like to be a woman in various cultures. And this one is in Tokyo. We were covering a geisha house, what geisha women do.
Wow.
And it was really interesting.
So could you give us a little quick?
They have men who have a lot of money come and they hire a geisha house, and the geisha girls, they call them, they come out and serve them, and it's really very straight and no sex business. And
so I had the dirty mind, huh? I always thought it was something more than that. But I guess
no,
not.
it isn't. No, they're
that's
very,
good to
very
know.
classic and very straight.
Very good.
Now this is, let's see, this is in Africa, doing the same theme. What is it like to be a woman?
Really?
We covered in Africa, we covered women who do most of the business. This was in Nigeria. And I'll never forget, we went into the back room of a woman who was running a carpet business. And she was counting the money, and I never saw so many stacks of bills. It was quite impressive.
Really? But she owned the business.
Yeah, a lot of women run the businesses in Africa. Now, this is
Do you know why, maybe?
I'm not sure. This is in Brazil in 1964. I was doing a documentary all about Brazil. This was in Brasilia when they were just starting to build it, and you'll see some of the buildings there.
Yeah, I can see. And it's just interesting looking at the cameras that you were using then. And what was the type of camera you used?
16 millimeter Araflex, a German-made camera. This is in Sweden. We're doing an interview with a woman attorney.
And that's from that
and
same
that's that
series.
same theme. What is it like to be a woman in various cultures? Another one we did, which I don't have a picture of, is she was the first ordained minister.
Really?
And we filmed her with the same, for the
And
same.
where was that at?
For the same film in Stockholm.
Oh, okay.
Now this is on the Riviera in 1963, and the woman is my fiance. She flew over, and we had I chartered a yacht for 2 weeks, and it was just in between business.
In between business. I see. Let's show that. Let me just show that again, because we were looking at it earlier, and you said you resembled Kennedy.
Oh,
Have anybody ever told you that?
I had a dinner. My friend had a dinner party, and I brought this picture over, and he had some kids, and they said, "Okay, who can guess who this is?" And they said Kennedy.
Really? See?
Now here's in Africa. That's a picture in Nigeria for the same picture. What is it like to be a woman?
What was it like with that? What was that experience like? And how long were you there?
Well, we were never in any one place for more than a week,
Okay.
and then we'd move on.
So what was it like? Were the people intimidated or, welcoming doing the filming, the people there?
Oh yeah, we just, like in Paris, it was amazing. I got into the apartment of Simone de Beauvoir, who wrote the first book about women, and it's called The Second Sex. And that was before Betty Friedan's book. It was in Montmartre, and it was really interesting to see a woman of that ilk. She was like an icon. You ever hear of her, Simone de Beauvoir?
No, I haven't. I have to look her up.
This is Roy Rogers. We're going back a bit. This is around 1954 in that small studio that I started to work for.
And where was the studio again, George? Where was the studio?
The studio 89th and West Side.
So it was in New York?
Yeah.
Wow.
And by the way, while I was working for this small studio, one day the entire crew from On the Waterfront came up to our studio because we had a mock-up of a taxi cab there. And they shot that famous scene in On the Waterfront of Marlon Brando with Rod Steiger in the taxi. Remember that?
Yes.
Charlie, I could have been a contender. Remember that?
Yes.
And so I was there to.
Wow.
And also I'm the last man standing who was at that filming of the cab interior shot.
Wow.
And if you ever see that picture again, you'll notice that on the back window of the cab, they had a Venetian blind because they didn't have the ability to show street scene behind, and they spent the whole morning developing the lighting to create the illusion of driving around at night in Manhattan.
Wow.
So I had that experience.
That's cool.
Now this is Paul Newman and his wife Joanne Woodward. I was doing a documentary about Paul Newman, And this is up where he lived in Westport, Connecticut.
Oh, okay. And what when was that? What year was that?
67.
67. Wow.
And this is from the Hampton Film Festival, 1975. And
So they've been doing the film festival for a long time here. This is in Long Island here?
yeah. The Hampton Film Festival.
They've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
And who's in that
And I was
picture?
part of that. See, each of these people had a day to present what they did. Like in my case, I shot the film called Last American Hero.
Okay.
So I had to show the feature film.
And then you do a
at
Q&A.
Guildhall. At Guildhall.
Right.
And then I had to get up and speak about it and answer any questions. And so Eli Wallach and what's his wife's name? Ann Jackson. They did. They had a night, and each of this group had a night, and so that was fun.
That's good. They still do that. I enjoy the Hampton Film Festival.
This, of
every
course,
year.
we saw this earlier. This is Adlai Stevenson, I think, right?
Yes.
That's running when he was running for president, 1956. He lost. He lost the election to Eisenhower. And here is Simone Signoret, the famous French actress. And we were doing her for part of that film, What Is It Like to Be a Woman?
And this was ABC?
Yeah, ABC Network, 1 hour special.
Wow.
So that was fun.
What was she like? Do you remember?
She was fun, and her husband, she was married to Yves Montand at the time, and he was like doing some funny tricks, like looking in the window and making faces while we were filming. She was on the ground floor, her apartment, so he was right looking through the window. Now this is an interesting shot. This is John Glenn when he had just returned from orbiting the Earth for the first time.
Wow.
And what was the year there? I forget the year.
The year was 1960.
Yeah, 1960. That was around JFK's inaugural.
Wow. Amazing, 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 George.
Now this is in London with a famous British actor called Terry Thomas.
Okay.
And he was in that picture, Around the World in 80 Days.
Okay, yes.
That was one of the films.
Okay.
But he was a very famous comedian. And I was in his apartment here. We did a film, and he helped us out with a special film we were doing about gambling. And we had to go to London to shoot it.
Wow.
Okay. So
What was it like traveling,
well,
or doing all that traveling?
so many airplanes, you know, so many restaurants and hotels. But one nice thing about it was that we always stayed at the best hotels.
Oh, that's good.
And we had first-class air travel, and we always went to the best restaurants.
That's good.
So, you know, when we entered a city like Paris, we do a little bit of research. Where's the best restaurant? So we went to Tour d'Argent, where they specialized in pressed duck, that sort of thing. So it was a lot of fun gastronomically.
So ABC or whoever was producing, they picked up the tab, obviously.
Yes, that's right.
That's great.
I had a first-class round-trip airplane ticket at that time. I think it was $6,500. That's
65?
in 1963.
Really?
That's what it cost to go around the world first class.
Oh, around the world, okay. Wow.
Now this picture is my crew when I was shooting Last American Hero. That's my operators and assistants.
And this is you right here?
Yeah.
And you said most of those gentlemen are no longer with us, huh?
That's right. This was done in
Wow.
1972.
Wow. This is a very, did we show this one already? I'm trying to see if we showed this one already.
Yeah, this is Joanne Woodward and Paul Newman. Same.
It's the same sort.
Same-
it's the
same deal.
shot. This is a very interesting one here.
Now this is interesting because it represents two separate pictures that I shot. One was with President Johnson. I used to fly with him on AirForce One every weekend to his ranch, and this was a different film, and they both sent me autographed pictures, personalized, which was really great.
It's wonderful. So what was it like being on the ranch with them? Did you stay there or you just?
No, I stayed at a motel in Johnson City, which is like 2 blocks wide
Okay.
and 2 blocks long.
Really?
And he has an actual brother who looks just like him.
Really?
And no one has ever seen him
Wow.
because he was an alcoholic,
Oh.
and he was a real problem.
Really? So you had to
And-
keep that under the rug, huh?
Yeah, so that was happening there. But the main excitement here was flying on Air Force One and having dinner with him, you know, because he would leave Washington on Friday afternoon, and so there'd be dinner time at 30,000 feet. It took about three and a half hours to fly to Texas. So that was fun.
Did you interview them at all?
No, it wasn't that kind of film.
It wasn't that kind of film.
Oh, this is me on Madison Avenue directing a TV commercial.
Just give us a little background of what would that experience be like doing that commercial?
Well, commercials, I never liked them actually too much because they're so artificial.
Oh, okay.
You know, it's like hiring an actor to be a housewife,
Okay.
that kind of thing.
Okay.
And I came from documentaries where it was real life,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's a whole different venue. So that I did it because what happened was people used to see my credit for the documentaries, and they began to call me because they were interested in maybe trying something new, something different. So that's how I gained entrance to the different kind of venue of filmmaking. TV commercials are a totally different world where things are done in 30 seconds and you have to present your story within that time.
Okay.
Now, this is a little press release of a feature film that I shot, and it won the first prize in the Atlanta Film Festival in
It's called Recess?
19, I forget the year.
I don't know if it's on there, George. I don't think I see it on there.
It was a film done without sets and without being on location.
What was it about?
It was done totally on a set with no props.
Really?
So it was a big challenge for me, the cinematographer. I was the director of photography.
What was
and
it
what
about?
it was about was about American culture from birth to death.
Oh, okay. What was
It never made any money because it was too strange.
Oh, people wasn't.
But it won first prize.
Really?
You know, on its artistic merit.
People wasn't ready for that yet, huh?
Right,
They
right.
weren't quite ready for that.
This is in Africa again. This is. It was interesting when we brought our lunch with us, you know, to go to into the jungle, and as the people, the natives were, you know, they didn't have much food, so we tried to be polite, and we'd get in our car and drive maybe a half a mile outside, away from them, so they wouldn't see it eat. But what happened was they all came, they followed us through the swamps, and so we ended up giving them our lunch.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. How far in the jungle did you go?
Well, we just went to Lagos.
To the lake house?
Lagos, Lagos, the
Lagos,
capital.
Lagos, okay.
Outside of Lagos.
Right.
So
in
we're gonna be
Nigeria.
about 30 miles outside. We got into the swampland.
And how much time did you spend there?
Well, it's hard to remember. I think maybe 3 days.
Was it hot? Because I've not been to Africa.
It was doable, not too bad.
doable?
Yeah. Now this is the feature film Last American Hero. This shows Jeff Bridges when he was 21. He was the star of the film.
Oh, there's Jeff Bridges right there.
Yeah. This was done in 1972.
And where was this?
This was Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh, really?
We shot the whole film in and around Charlotte.
But it looks like it's on an estate or something, or down a road.
Well, yeah, this was on location.
This is the hot picture right here.
Well, I got a call from Hollywood from David Wolper, who is a very famous documentary producer, and he said, "George, I want you to shoot Betty Davis. She's going to be given an award at a restaurant. So he said, I want you to go down to the Plaza Hotel where she's staying, and you take it from there, do what you want with her." So I got to the Plaza, and I picked up the house phone, and lo and behold, there was Betty Davis on the other line.
Wow.
So I told her I wanted to come down and get her I wanted to film her getting out of the elevator, and I filmed her going through the prom court, into her limo, and to the place where she was going to get the award. So she said, "George, I want you to stay with me, have dinner with me." So I said, "Okay." So I put my equipment away and sat with her for about 2 hours.
Wow.
It was quite amazing.
So what was it like sitting there? Were you nervous?
I was nervous.
It was Betty Davis, George.
I was nervous. I was almost tongue-tied because you know she was in her early 50s at the time.
And how old were you?
I don't remember. Maybe 36 or 7. And it was small talk. But it was, you know, it's just one of those things when you sit down with Betty Davis.
Really?
It's a bit intimidating, I must say.
I bet.
But it was fun.
And where'd you have this lunch or this dinner at?
At the thing called the Playbill Restaurant.
And this is in New York?
It's in the 40s. I think it's still there.
Wow.
But I think what she liked about me was two things. One is that when she was doing feature films with William Wyler, like he was a famous for shooting the scene over and over. So that when I filmed her getting out of the elevator, going through the prom court, it was like one take. I had it all. I said thanks.
Wow.
And you know, she got in her limo and that was it. So I think she liked that. But also she was probably alone, and she didn't want to sit alone in the restaurant by herself. So I just fit the bill, and she invited me.
Wow.
Which was okay with me.
I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was. This is near a couple of, once we have finished.
Oh, this is in Paul Newman's house in Westport, when I was doing some sections of a documentary about him, for the same producer, David Wolper. The same producer who's doing the Betty Davis documentary.
Right. Well, we have to do another show, George. But to segue into that, I want you to tell us a little bit about what that picture looks like. I mean, what that picture is. And we're going to segue, and we're going to come back, and we're going to talk more about what you're going to tell us about that photo.
Excellent. Okay, well, this is a picture of Martin Luther King's living room. And this was in December of 1965. And I'm not exactly sure how we got to be invited in there, but what I've learned is that we were the only film crew to ever be invited inside his house. Wow. And we had a wonderful week with him. And we had lunch together, and he was, I thought it was great because he was so relaxed, a relaxed atmosphere. And you may notice, maybe you can't see it in the wide shot, but his idol is Mahatma Gandhi.
Right.
Who was assassinated for somebody who didn't like his ideas. So anyway, that was a very, very nifty experience, and I keep pinching myself.
Yeah, I bet.
To have, you know.
I was pinching you too, because I just thought to think about, you were sitting in that living room, and you're still here to tell and share this with us. It's just amazing.
I'm the only person still alive who was on this film.
And the gentleman that interviewed him, his name was?
Arnold Michaelis. He's very, very famous. And he interviewed almost everybody in the world who was heads of state, you know, famous movie actors. And actually Arnold is the guy who got us in there.
Really?
When he called up Martin Luther King. Because I actually spoke with his wife recently because I was interested, you know, it was like a half a century ago. And I wanted to find out how in the world did we get in there?
Yeah.
So she said that he simply called him up. But what Arnold had was the credentials, you know, the background. So that's how the good doctor let us in there.
Wow.
And
so I understand too, you had one camera?
Yes.
We're going to talk more of it in the next show, but you only had one camera?
The thing is that Arnold decided to do this film on his own, outside of networks, so he used his own money. So that had a low budget. You know, so we only could afford one camera. So I was the director, so I had to figure out how to stage this thing so that when it's edited, it would make sense.
Right.
And have that nice kind of spontaneity to it. Nowadays, they use a minimum of 2 and usually 3 cameras. You know, if you're interviewing, let's say, Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama on 60 Minutes, they have 3 cameras. And the editor, it makes life easier. Whereas this thing, you have to stop after you do a certain thought pattern, and now you might need shots of Arnold. I have to be on Martin Luther King, you know, for his reply, right? Then I have to stop and move the camera over here to shoot Arnold.
Wow.
Right? That means relighting, and you know, we were there for a whole week. That's one of the reasons.
Right. So the whole interview took about a week?
Yes.
Wow.
Maybe 3.5 days. You know, it's hard to remember back that far. I can't tell you what we had for lunch, for instance.
Right, I wouldn't ask you that.
But I remember sitting on the porch with him. He's just a regular guy.
Wow.
And we talked about Vietnam. And it was just an amazing experience.
I can imagine. Well, George, we're going to segue to our next show, and we're going to talk more about your experience interviewing Martin Luther King in his living room.
Good.
And we're going to get more into more of the details of some of the questions that he was asked and some of the things that were going on during that time.
All right, great.
All right?
Love to come back.
Great, great, great. So this is Brenda at Voices of Wisdom, and I really hope you tune into this show, and you tune into the next show, rather, and you're going to learn and hear a lot of things that I don't think anyone has ever known about this. And this film was, there was an interview with Martin Luther King, which I explained more when it was shown recently here in Southampton. So this is Val, Voices of Wisdom. You have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you.